Okay, Megan, let's talk about an interesting icebreaker or an executive tool called Cover Story Mockups. Have you used this before?
I sure have.
Okay, so what do you love about it and what is it?
Cover story mockups are a really exciting way to get people involved in thinking about a possible future where their product, service, idea has taken off and is taking the world by storm.
Okay, interesting. But when I think about cover stories, and admittedly some of our icebreakers start here, I used to think in terms of print. So the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, Inc. magazine. But the truth be told is that cover stories can appear anywhere now, right? Largely on websites and the like. So does that change how we think about imagining our future, or is there any one type of cover story that I should use for everyone?
I don't think there's one type of cover story you can use for everyone. When I was doing this activity in real life spaces, not in virtual spaces, we would even bring in magazines and like rip apart covers and pull headlines off and cut out pictures of the people that were on the cover. And that was the way that we actually did this in real life. In this example, we're actually going to be using sort of digital versions of those covers, and people can play with them and manipulate them in whatever ways they want.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. In fact, if I was going to confess, because we are of the same generation, I actually still use recycled magazines or upcycled magazines to get everyone's gears going and actually warm them up for even a digital exercise. In fact, it works really well, especially and even if you're remote, to actually have the magazines that mean the most to you and your biggest aspiration in front of you while you're ultimately reflecting on the templates and exercises we have here.
Absolutely. It can mean a lot to understand if the people in the room envision their idea being on the cover of the New York Times versus Forbes versus Time Magazine versus Entrepreneur.
Okay, excellent. Now, will you reveal to the crowd what magazine cover do you most often imagine your business being on?
Oh, that's a really good question. Let me think about that for a minute. I think I'd love to see us on the cover of Fast Company, up there aligned with the organizations and people that are thinking about the new big ideas and bringing them to the table.
Oh, okay, great. Well, no one would certainly hesitate to want themselves on Fast Company, so excellent choice. But we wanted to remind everybody that whether it's a trade magazine, print, or digitally native, it doesn't really matter. The point is the group aligns on the aspiration, the success that would be aligned to the idea of appearing on this cover. Fair enough, Megan?
Exactly.
Okay, great. So do I use something like this at the beginning of my experience or at the end of my experience? So we get everybody together and we want to break some ice and get everybody on the same page. Is that the only time I can use a cover story, or is a cover story something I can use midway through my design journey?
So when you think about when you might use this cover story mockup, it could be a tool that would align everyone in the room and get them excited about an idea and thinking about an idea, maybe even bringing some of those detractors who aren't as excited about the idea on board and thinking about the future success of the idea. Another way that you could use this is at the end of a session where you've been brainstorming and processing a lot of information. Maybe you have a few concept ideas and you almost want to ask the room, like, let's test these out. Let's sort of imagine the future of what these ideas could be.
Yeah, really well said. In fact, I've used it in a similar way where sometimes I'll actually kick off a meeting having made up my own covers and then see if people actually agree or disagree to a much more senior or executive audience.
Oh, that's a cool idea.
Yeah, something to explore. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get into our digital template where all the work actually happens. Now, as a reminder, we're inside of Miro. And the reason we've chosen Miro and broadly a digital tool is because I'm actually not an artist. I don't know about you, Megan. Can you design covers these days?
Definitely not.
But the good news is your art department is now the entire internet. So anything that you can search from an image, an illustration, or frankly, even a video can actually be embedded inside of your Miro template. So reminder to everyone that you don't actually have to have a creative gene or the ability to push pixels or make frames in order to do this exercise. Like always, Megan and I are going to start by reminding you that we actually have an instructional video, the very video you're listening, consistently found on this template in the top left-hand side, and a variety of instructions on the left-hand column that you're now seeing here. So as you can see, step 1, 2, and 3 provide at least the foundational way to get going to organize around this idea of aspiration or cover story. We also, in the bottom left-hand corner, have provided a handful of examples that you can see here from the New York Times, Forbes, and Time, of course. No Fast Company, unfortunately, for this one, Megan, but a new addition to be in version 2. Just to get your gears going and try to get those creative juices flowing so that if you've never or haven't recently seen a cover of an aspirational magazine, print or digital application, you can see here as well. But on the right-hand side and in the main portion of the template, you're gonna see a variety of frames that you can work from. Now, Megan, what's interesting here is we've put 6 or 8 examples on each one of these frames. So you can see here there's name 1, name 2, name 1, name 2. Why are we providing a different place to customize and sort of label these frames instead of letting just everyone build in every direction?
Exactly. So when you're asking people to produce their cover story, it might be nice to allow a couple of different groups or individuals to work through this on their own. And then potentially you could have the room share out which frame they chose, what their big headline was, and compare and contrast the differences that happen across your room.
Oh, well said. You know, one of the things I also like to think about is sometimes I replace the name value with a date value.
Oh, cool.
So in addition to what I thought was really clever, the individual brainstorm collectively in the group think, we also have an opportunity to say, hey, what is our aspiration in Q1 of this particular year? And then if we come back together in Q4, or hopefully in between that to do iterative planning, we can understand, well, do we still want to see ourselves on Fast Company, or do we actually want to see ourselves in Inc. or Forbes or whatever the next generation of publication actually is?
So here where it says name, I could put my name. Maybe this is my board.
Well said. I'll go ahead and take this one.
Or you could put a date.
That's right. Or you could put a name and a date.
Oh, awesome.
Right? This allows you to understand not only the power of bringing all this digital content into one template, so I can find all the images and the titles and screen grabs and videos I'd like, but it also allows us to understand, well, what was Megan's aspiration versus Adam's aspiration? What was our collective aspiration in Q1 when maybe we're out of season versus Q4 or Q4 when we're really in season? Make sense?
Totally.
All right, now you'll see here we have Forbes, Time, Inc., NYT, etc. Are these the only publications that we can use in this tool?
Certainly not. If your organization has a trade magazine that's really important to them, or a publication that people in the room feel really inspired that they want to see their idea on the cover of, they could certainly adjust these to fit whatever the idea is.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. Now, are there any things, I think we know some of the best practices at this point, right? So align a trade or a magazine that's at least enough within the reality bend that you could see yourself there someday.
Sure.
Maybe allow some individual think before we bring it all together and consider if a time-lapse version of this makes sense. Are there any things to watch out for though? I mean, this is a pretty creative exercise. Not everybody can necessarily turn on those skills on demand. How do we get people excited about this?
Oftentimes when we are asking people to think about an idea, they think about it in the here and now. And so we want people to think about the future maybe with a few less constraints. So I always say, imagine that like the laws of physics and those types of things don't exist here. We're just thinking about a future where this already is a success. So you're asking people to kind of assume success and project that onto their idea. Then they want to think about, who is this idea really for? What are the types of things that people might be saying about it? If you think about a headline, there's often like a big quote or something like that that happens on the cover of a magazine or a publication. And what are the big, important, salient points of your idea that really will stand out on that cover? Those are the kind of things people should be thinking about.
Really love that point about less constraints equals more creativity.
Absolutely.
Well, and again, I think the important part here is this is just one way to break the ice and cast a vision. You'll find additional icebreakers in and around our home hub, inclusive of things like your favorite meal or that very billboard to capture just the headline, even if we didn't have the advantage of a full magazine or digital cover. So please take some time now, enjoy the template, and as always, please let Megan and I know if you have any feedback or opportunities for us to improve. Thanks so much for dialing in.